My mother-in-law called me a worthless black and locked me in the basement while my husband took his mistress to a family wedding. In my dress, they said I'd ruined their reputation. But when I walked in with my billionaire father and his security team, my mother-in-law collapsed right there. Before we get into this story, if you've ever been disrespected, humiliated, or treated like you're nothing by people who thought they were better than you need to hear this. Hit that like button right now because what I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this is the most savage, satisfying revenge you'll ever witness. I'm talking lawyers, security guards, and a mother-in-law literally fainting from shock. Don't you dare skip ahead. You need to hear every single detail of how my billionaire father destroyed the family that tortured me. Let's go. My name is Lauren, and for 3 years I lived in hell. I'm talking about the kind of hell that slowly breaks you down piece by piece until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. I was married to a man named Derek, and we lived in his childhood home with his mother Gloria, his sister Monica, and his younger brother Brian. Now, I know what you're thinking. Living with your in-laws sounds bad enough, right? But this wasn't just uncomfortable. This was psychological warfare. Every single day. Let me paint you a picture of my daily life. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to Gloria banging on my bedroom door, screaming at me to get up and make breakfast for the family. Mind you, I worked full-time as a dental hygienist, bringing home $4,500 a month. Derek, he worked in sales and barely made $2,000. I was paying most of the bills in that house, including $2,000 a month in so-called rent to Gloria. But somehow, I was treated like I was living there for free, like I was some kind of charity case they'd graciously take in. Every morning I'd drag myself out of bed, cook a full breakfast for 5 people, serve it to them while they sat around the table talking and laughing, and then I'd clean up while they got ready for their day. Monica would leave her dirty clothes on my bed, not in a hamper, on my bed, with a note that said, "Wash these." Brian would bring his friends over and they'd sit in the living room while I served them drinks like I was hired help. One time, one of his friends said, "Yo, Derek, your mate is hot." And Brian laughed and said, "That's his wife, bro." They all thought it was hilarious. Derek just sat there, didn't say a word. But the worst part, the absolute worst part was Gloria. That woman hated me from the moment Derek brought me home. She never even tried to hide it. She'd make comments about my hair, saying it looked like a mop and asking why I couldn't straighten it like normal people. When I cooked dinner, she'd take one bite and push the plate away, saying it tasted like slave food and asking if I could make real food. I tried to defend myself once, just once, and she slapped me across the face so hard my ear rang for hours. When Derek came home and saw my red swollen cheek, you know what he said? "Be more careful, babe." His mother told him, I fell. And he believed her without question. Or maybe he just didn't care enough to ask. And then there was Vanessa. Oh, Vanessa. She was Gloria's hairdresser's daughter, blonde and thin, and everything Gloria had wanted Derek to marry. She came over 4 or 5 times a week, and everyone treated her like she was already part of the family. Better than family, actually. Better than me. She'd sit on Derek's lap during family movie nights while I had to sit on the floor because all the seats were taken. She wore my clothes, used my makeup, even slept in my bed when I was at work one time. She smiled at me and said, "Derek told me you don't mind sharing. We're basically sister wives." And then laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. Gloria would just smile and say, "Vanessa is more of a daughter to me than you'll ever be." I tried talking to Derek about it so many times. I'd wait until we were alone. And I'd tell him how his family was treating me, how his mother had hit me, how Vanessa was crossing every boundary, and every single time he'd tell me I was being dramatic. He'd say his mother was just old-fashioned and Vanessa was just a family friend. When I pointed out that she literally sat on his lap, he told me I was insecure and that maybe if I acted more like Vanessa, his family would like me more. That's when I realized the truth. He was never going to defend me. He was never going to protect me. He was perfectly happy with the way things were. Now, here's the thing. Nobody in that house knew. My father is Harold Montgomery. If you don't recognize that name, Let me spell it out for you. He's a billionaire real estate mogul, hotel owner, commercial properties across the country. His net worth is $4.8 billion. That's billion with a B. And I never told Derek or his family. Not once. When I met Derek at a coffee shop 4 years ago, I was just Lauren. I worked as a dental hygienist because I wanted to, not because I had to. I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not for my father's bank account. My dad warned me. He sat me down and said, "Baby girl, that man and his family will show you who they are. When they do, believe them." But I didn't listen. I thought love was enough. I thought if I just tried hard enough, proved myself enough, they'd eventually accept me. I was so stupid. Everything changed 3 months ago when Derek's cousin Philip announced he was getting married. It was going to be this huge elaborate wedding at the Morrison estate. Gloria was obsessed with it. She kept talking about how Leonard Morrison was old money and real class and how this wedding was our chance to make connections with important people. She made lists of rules for how we should behave, which forks to use, what topics to discuss. She was treating it like we were meeting the Queen of England. For the first time in 3 years, I felt a spark of hope, a wedding, a family event where I could maybe finally feel like I belonged. I saved money for 2 months. Every extra dollar I had went into a savings account. I bought a beautiful midnight blue dress for $800. It was the most I'd ever spent on a single piece of clothing. But I wanted to look perfect. I wanted Derek to look at me and remember why he married me. I wanted his family to see that I could fit into their world. 3 days before the wedding, Gloria called a family meeting. We all sat in the living room and she went through her list of expectations. Then she turned to me and her face went cold. "Lauren," she said, "we need to discuss your situation." I asked her what she meant and Monica jumped in. "You're black," she said like she was pointing out that the sky was blue. "The Morrisons are traditional." I felt my stomach drop. Gloria leaned forward and said, "We think it's best if you stay home." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Stay home? I was Derek's wife. Gloria kept talking, saying something about how they didn't want people asking questions, how it would be easier if I just sat this one out. I looked at Derek, waiting for him to say something, to defend me, to tell his mother she was being insane. Instead, he looked at the floor and said, "Babe, you have to understand, these are important people." That's when Monica delivered the final blow. "Besides," she said with this nasty little smile, "Vanessa already has a dress. She'll be Derek's date." I turned to my husband, the man who had promised to love and protect me, and asked if he was really going to take Vanessa to a family wedding instead of his wife. He still wouldn't look at me. He just mumbled something about it being easier this way. The morning of the wedding, I woke up determined I wasn't going to let them do this to me. I put on my beautiful blue dress, did my makeup, styled my hair. I looked gorgeous, if I do say so myself. I grabbed my clutch and headed downstairs. And that's when I saw her. Vanessa was standing in my bedroom doorway wearing my jewelry. Not similar jewelry. My jewelry. The earrings Derek had given me for our anniversary. Except he hadn't really given them to me. Had he? He'd bought them with my credit card. I demanded she take them off and Gloria appeared out of nowhere. "Those earrings are family property," she said. I tried to push past them, tried to walk out the front door, but Brian blocked my way. When I demanded my car keys, Derek pulled them out of his pocket and jingled them in front of me like I was a child. "You're not going," he said. End of discussion. I tried to push past them. I was screaming, crying, begging, and then Brian and Derek grabbed me. They actually grabbed me, their hands on my arms, dragging me toward the basement door. I was kicking, screaming that this was kidnapping, that they couldn't do this. Gloria opened the basement door and I'll never forget what she said. She leaned close to my face, close enough that I could smell her perfume, and whispered, "You're a worthless black bitch. And I should have had my son deport you back to wherever you came from." Then she pushed me. I fell down those stairs, hit my shoulder so hard I thought it was broken. The door slammed shut above me and I heard the lock click into place. I sat there in that cold, dark basement, cradling my injured shoulder, and I could hear them upstairs. I could hear Vanessa asking Derek if she looked okay. And I could hear him tell her she looked perfect. I heard the front door close, heard their cars start up and drive away. And then there was just silence, complete and total silence. I don't know how long I sat there crying before I remembered. My phone was tucked into my bra. I'd put it there earlier and somehow in all the chaos, they hadn't thought to take it. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. The screen lit up. 2% battery. I had maybe one phone call, maybe 5 minutes of power left. I thought about calling 911, but what would I even say? My husband locked me in the basement to go to a wedding. They'd think I was crazy. So, I called the one person I'd been too proud, too ashamed to call for the past 3 years. I called my father. He answered on the first ring. Lauren, just hearing his voice made me break down completely. Daddy, I sobbed. I need help. He asked if I was safe, and I told him everything I told him. I was locked in a basement. That Derek and his family had gone to a wedding. That they'd left me here like I was nothing. There was this long terrifying silence on the other end of the line. Then my father's voice came back and it was different, cold, dangerous. What wedding? He asked. Derek's cousin Philip, I said. Morrison something. I don't know the full name. Another pause. Then Philip Morrison, Leonard Morrison's son. I told him I thought so. And that's when my father laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made my blood run cold. Baby girl, he said. Leonard Morrison is my business partner. We own 14 properties together. I'm not just invited to that wedding. I'm the best man. I'm in the wedding party. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. This whole time, Derek's family had been obsessing over making connections with the Morrisons. And my father was Leonard Morrison's best friend. My father was the connection they'd been dreaming about. The irony would have been funny if I wasn't sitting in a basement with a dislocated shoulder. What's the address? My father asked. I told him and he said, I'm sending police and my security team. They'll be there in 10 minutes. I tried to tell him my phone was dying, but he cut me off. Listen carefully. When they get you out, there'll be a black SUV waiting. They'll bring you to me at the Morrison estate. We're going to that wedding together, Princess. I started to protest that I didn't have anything to wear and he said, your mother's entire collection is in my hotel suite. Dresses, jewels, everything. My team is waiting. Then he said something I'll never forget. They locked my daughter in a basement. They're about to learn who you really are. And my phone died. 8 minutes later, I heard pounding on the front door upstairs. Then the sound of it being kicked in. Police officers and security guards found me in that basement. A paramedic checked my shoulder, badly bruised, but not broken. And the police took photos of everything, documented it all. One officer asked if I wanted to press charges right then. I looked up at him and said, not yet. First, I have a wedding to attend. The black SUV took me to the Ritz-Carlton presidential suite. My father was there and when he saw me, when he saw my torn dress and my swollen shoulder and my tear-stained face, something in his eyes broke. He hugged me carefully, mindful of my injuries, and said, I'm so sorry, baby girl. I should have come sooner. I told him he'd said I needed to make my own choices. And he said, I was wrong. A father protects his daughter always. The suite was full of people, stylists, makeup artists, hair specialists, even a doctor to check my injuries properly. And there were 3 full racks of designer dresses, beautiful gowns in every color. My father told me to pick anything, that everything there belonged to me. I chose an emerald green gown that made my skin glow, that made me look like royalty. They styled my hair in an elegant updo, did my makeup flawlessly, and then my father opened a glass case. Inside was my mother's diamond necklace, 50 carats, worth $2 million, matching earrings and bracelet. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. I looked powerful. I looked like someone who could never ever be locked in a basement. My father looked at me with tears in his eyes. "You look just like her," he said. I took his arm and said, "Let's go show them who I really am." By the time we arrived at the Morrison estate, the ceremony was over and cocktail hour was in full swing. Derek's family was inside mingling, feeling important. Gloria was name-dropping, telling anyone who would listen how close they were to the Morrisons. Vanessa was on Derek's arm in my jewelry, loving every second of attention. And Monica was taking selfies with hashtags about high society. They thought they were winning. Then our Rolls-Royce pulled up. A valet opened the door and my father stepped out first. I watched through the tinted window as heads turned as people started whispering. Harold Montgomery. Everyone knew who he was. Then he reached back and helped me out. I emerged like a queen. Diamonds sparkling under the lights. Cameras flashing. Word spread through that venue like wildfire. Leonard Morrison, the groom's father, practically ran over to us. Harold, brother, they embraced like the old friends they were. And then Leonard turned to me. "And who is this stunning young lady?" My father smiled and said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Leonard, you remember my daughter, Lauren?" Leonard's eyes went wide, then filled with warmth. "Little Lauren, my God, you've grown. Last time I saw you, you were 10 years old at my beach house." He hugged me tight and I realized these people knew me. I was family to them. Inside, someone rushed to find Derek. "Dude, Harold Montgomery just arrived with a woman. Everyone saying she's his daughter." Derek barely looked up from his conversation. "So, he's famous." "Of course, he's here." But then Monica looked out the window and her face went white. "That's Lauren," she whispered. Brian pulled out his phone and Googled my father's name. When he saw the net worth, $4.8 billion, he nearly dropped his phone. When we walked into that reception venue, the room went silent. Every single person turned to look at us. Then the whispers exploded. My father walked me to the head table where the wedding party was sitting because he was the best man. We sat down with Leonard and his wife, with the bride and groom, with the most important people at that wedding and Derek's family. They were 12 rows back by the kitchen doors, forced to watch. Gloria saw me and the champagne glass literally slipped from her hand. It shattered on the marble floor and everyone turned to look at her. She was staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. Derek turned, saw me, and the color drained from his face completely. Monica was frantically scrolling through her phone, and Brian was saying something about billions, but Derek couldn't hear anything. All he could hear was his own heart pounding in his ears. Gloria tried to rush over to us, tried to get to me, but my father's security team, 6 large men in black suits, blocked her path. "I'm family," she screamed. "I'm her mother-in-law." One of the guards looked at my father. My father didn't even glance in Gloria's direction. He just shook his head slightly. The guard turned back to Gloria and said, "You're not on the list." When it was time for toasts, Leonard took the microphone. "I want to thank my best friend, my brother, Harold Montgomery, for being here on my son's special day. Harold and I met in college 40 years ago. He was my roommate, my best man at my own wedding, and like a brother to me. Then he looked right at me, and his beautiful daughter, Lauren, is here tonight. Lauren. Sweetheart, stand up." I stood and the spotlight found me, and the room erupted in applause. Leonard continued, "I've known this young lady since she was born. She's family to us. We love you, Lauren." I could feel Derek's eyes on me from across the room. Could feel the weight of his family's shock and horror. After the speech, Derek tried to approach. My father's security stopped him immediately. "That's my wife," Derek was saying, his voice cracking with panic. "I need to talk to her." That's when my father appeared. He walked over slowly, deliberately, and looked Derek up and down with pure disgust. "Your wife," he said. "You're the man who locked my daughter in a basement." People nearby heard this. Phones came out. Derek was stammering, trying to explain, saying it was all a misunderstanding. Then Gloria pushed her way through the crowd. "Mr. Montgomery, there's been a huge mistake." My father turned to her with ice in his eyes. "The only mistake was my daughter marrying into your family." Gloria was desperate now. "We didn't know who she was." And my father said, "You didn't know she was a human being. You didn't know she deserved respect." Gloria tried to save herself. "We thought she was just some." And she stopped realizing what she was about to say in front of all these people. My father leaned in close. "Some what, Gloria? Say it. Say what you called my daughter this morning." "You called her a worthless black. In case you're wondering, my security retrieved the nanny cam footage from your house." "Yes, your house, which by the way, I now own." Gloria's face went white. Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed right there on the marble floor. Monica screamed. Brian stood there frozen. Vanessa backed away slowly, wanting to disappear. And Derek looked like he wanted to die. While people were helping Gloria, while Monica was screaming for a doctor, my father's lawyer stepped forward. He walked right up to Derek with a stack of papers. "Derek Williams," he said formally, "you're served. Divorce papers, restraining order, and a lawsuit for unlawful imprisonment, theft, and emotional distress." He handed Derek the papers, then turned to Monica and Brian. "You're also named in the lawsuit as accessories. You physically restrained Mrs. Montgomery Williams. That's a felony." Vanessa tried to slip away in the chaos. I called her name and she froze. I walked over to her in my emerald gown and my mother's diamonds and I looked her right in the eyes. "The earrings," I said, "take them off." She tried to protest, but I just stared at her until she removed them with shaking hands. I took them and said, "When you get home, you'll find everything you've borrowed from me packed in boxes on your porch. My father's security team has been very busy today." I looked at Derek, who was standing there with papers in his hands and tears running down his face. "She's all yours now," I said. "A cheater and a thief. Perfect match." Then I walked away, back to my father's side, back to where I belonged. Leonard Morrison took the microphone again. "I'm going to have to ask some people to leave." Security escorted Derek, Gloria, Monica, Brian, and Vanessa out of that wedding in front of 300 guests. Every single person was recording on their phones. Gloria was screaming about discrimination. Leonard said calmly, "This is my son's wedding, and you disrespected my family. Get out." They were physically removed from the property. I stayed for the entire reception. I danced with my father. I talked with Leonard's wife, who treated me like a daughter. The bride hugged me and apologized for what I'd been through. I met business people and socialites and real high society, and every single one of them treated me with respect because that's what I deserved. That's what I'd always deserved. 3 days later, I went back to that house with police escorts and professional movers. Derek's family was there looking miserable. Gloria tried to apologize. "Lauren, please," she begged. "We didn't mean," but I cut her off. "You meant every word, every action. You showed me exactly who you are." Derek was crying. Actually crying, begging me to give him another chance. "Baby, please, we can work this out. I love you." I handed him the final divorce papers. "You love my father's money," I said. "You never loved me. You locked me in a basement. Derek, you brought your mistress to a family wedding wearing my clothes and my jewelry." I pointed at the signature line. "Sign these or my father's lawyers will destroy you in court." The investigation my father ordered revealed everything. Derek had known who my father was before we even got married. He'd Googled me, found out I was Harold Montgomery's daughter, and saw $signs. He thought if he could isolate me from my family, break me down enough, I'd be easier to control. Gloria encouraged the abuse because she thought if they made my life miserable enough, I'd leave and they could sue my father for money. They'd planned it all. 1 month later, the divorce was finalized. Derek signed over everything to avoid criminal charges. His family lost their house because my father owned the mortgage and foreclosed on it. Derek couldn't find work anywhere because my father's influence reached every corner of the industry. Vanessa married someone else within months. Gloria blamed Derek for ruining the family and they all fell apart. Me. I moved back home with my father while I healed. I started therapy because I had trauma to work through and my father told me to take all the time I needed. I started a foundation called Voices of Worth to help women escape abusive marriages. I used my story to help others, became a speaker and an advocate. I rebuilt myself from the ground up. 6 months after that wedding, I saw Derek across the street. He looked destroyed, thin, tired, broken. He saw me and started to walk over, but I held up my hand. "Don't," I said. He stopped. "Lauren, I just want to say," but I cut him off. "There's nothing you can say. You showed me who you were. I finally believed you." He said he was sorry, that he was so sorry. I looked at this man who had once made me believe I was worthless. And I felt nothing. "I know you are," I said. "You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you lost access to my father's money, but you're not sorry for what you did to me." And I walked away. I didn't look back. And that's how my billionaire father destroyed the family that locked me in a basement and tried to erase me. If this story gave you life, if you felt that satisfaction deep in your soul, smash that like button. I mean, destroy it. Share this video with every single person you know who's ever been disrespected by in-laws, cheated on, or made to feel small. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. Subscribe to this channel because I've got more stories of revenge, justice, and people getting exactly what they deserve. And remember, you are not what abusive people say you are. You are who your real family knows you to be. Know your worth. Demand respect and never ever let anyone lock you in a basement. Literally or figuratively. You are royalty. Walk like it. I'll see you in the next video. And trust me, the next story is even crazier.